Touch Girl Apple Blossom released their debut album Graceful on May 15th. It's 10 songs and 32 minutes and kicks so much ass. Is that not how you'd describe this music? Well, maybe you're just missing some context. Let me see if I can help. Touch Girl Apple Blossom got their name from this line from Beat Happening's Indian Summer.
Touch Girl Apple Blossom.
And happened to be signed to Perennial Records, a subsidiary of K Records, the label owned by the guy who just sang that line. But wait, before you go thinking this is some Calvin Johnson jerk-off band, hear me out. This band doesn't actually sound anything like Beat Happening. Do they sound like other bands that were involved with K Records and Beat Happening Circle? Kinda, but that's only because they got the same message. Subvert the pop structure by making your own pop and building your own structure. And Beat Happening didn't even come up with this idea. It seems like the 80s underground had to learn the same lesson as the 60s. When the suits buy all the rebellion, stuff it in a pretty little package and sell it back to listeners with all the context removed, the only way around that is to put optimism and childlike wonderment in the ugliest package that you can make with the materials around you and set up shop across the street. And in this way, gentle music can kick ass. There's always been bands doing this in some way or another in the 1980s that started getting called twee. And for a detailed history on that, please check out my audio-only podcast, episodes 2 and 3. 3 is not out yet, but it will be soon, I promise. Anyway, TGAB put out an album right at the beginning of spring that actually feels like spring, right down to the cover looking like a picnic blanket. And speaking of spring, the springtime reminds me of... reminds me of, So let's dive into track 2, The Springtime Reminds Me Of. First off, I love that they leave this open-ended, both in the title and the lyrics.
Time moves slow since I let you go. The world keeps turning. Springtime reminds me of.
I, of course, love the jangly guitars, but what jumps out to me even more is the heavy use of cymbals by the drummer. And I don't even mean heavy as in loud. They're actually really restrained, but there's just a lot of it going on. There's so much crashing and splashing. I feel like this falls more in line with what John Peel used to call shambling music. Like, it's pretty, but it could fall apart at any moment. And after a few listens, it clicked for me how well the music and lyrics work together on this one. The springtime is pretty, but maybe it can remind you of things that are hard to name, and maybe you'll fall apart. Wistful doesn't even cut it here. This is something deeper and inadvertently simpler. Track 4, You Made Me Do It, takes the idea of gentleness kicking ass even farther. Paste Magazine, in their review for this album, mentioned that TGAB's crowds do like a gentle version of moshing, which sounds crazy until you blast this song loud as hell and realize there's a lot of energy here and it's gotta go somewhere. And if you want a good reference point for that exact intersection, listen to what the band Heavenly was doing in the early 90s.
P is for the pain far away. She makes me feel sad.
I could absolutely see a crowd of non-violent parka-wearing pop heads pushing each other around and smiling from ear to ear at a Heavenly show, and it's good to see that spirit alive and well in 2026. Track 5, Moon Was Gone, is my low point. This is the only time on the album where I think the minimalism doesn't serve the song. Maybe I'd feel differently if I saw this in like a live setting, but I feel like this dude is singing his ass off over music that sounds disinterested. It's like I'm caught between two vibes and can't fully commit to either one. But then after that starts one of the most perfect 5-song runs I've ever heard on an album. You know how I talk on this channel sometimes about albums being front-loaded? Well, this is a back-loaded album. Tracks 6 through 10 take you on a journey while keeping you engaged the whole time. Let's get into them. Track 6, Heart Go, starts off like a thrash punk song with all the feedback and 16th note snare rolls that sound like it's gonna fucking destroy you. But then, instead of staying on the punk tip or fully going back into gentle twee mode, it does a secret third thing. The guitars are jangly and yet also angular. Jangular? And it feels like a reach to call this anthemic, but like... Next up, we've got track 7, Dustin's Song. On my first listen through, this was my favorite song. It still might be, I don't know, too hard to choose. Definitely my favorite vocal performance from Olivia. Like, the defining trait of indie pop is to write catchy melodies, and this one is so sugary sweet, just shoot it straight into my jangular vein. Also, there's this lyric. Am I crazy, or is this the Easter egg beat happening reference? I know they don't own the phrase playing possum, but isn't it a little strange that this line comes immediately after the touch girl apple blossom part of Indian Summer?
Apple blossom, just a boy playing possum.
Coincidence? You tell me. Next up is Back and Forth. I love a good tension and release guitar line, especially when they don't stick around for very long. This song is less than 2 minutes, but like a lot is happening here. The lower male vocal trading off with Olivia's vocals feels like nothing to be done by the Pastels. Track 9, I'm Lucky I Found You, is just a plain old beautiful love song. The kind the old folks used to write. If the rest of this album felt like there was at least a tiny shred of irony or remove from the sappiness, I got news for you, buddy. The sap is real. The first time I heard this, I deadass just started thinking about how much I love my girlfriend. Aww. If you got a sweetie you love, put this on in the living room and dance with them. And if you're single,
get wrecked, loser.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Sorry, sing it to your cat or something. But the closing track, Big Star Shinin', finishes this album perfectly. This time, instead of the music riding the line between gentleness and intensity, this is just an intense, almost psychedelic jam where the only gentle thing are the lyrics. Remember that this is a spring-themed album. Tell me what could be more spring than walking around on a sunny day. I'm assuming the big star in this case is the sun, and everything both inside and outside of you is singing a little melody. So right around 1.5 minutes in, there's this extended jammy part that takes up like most of the song. I think it was really smart to only do this once and only at the end of the album. This is generally not something indie pop bands do, but I think they Trojan horsed this in at the very end on purpose, because this isn't just a pastiche band trying to sound like they're heroes. They're just doing what their heroes did, subverting the pop structure by way of subverting your expectations. There's a lot of shaker in the extended jam part. And then after repeating the chorus one more time, the song and thus the album just abruptly ends. Just like spring, it gets in and gets out and leaves you wanting more. I think this album is incredible, especially the second half. Give it a listen. Order it from K Records, buy it on Bandcamp. Of course, it's streaming on all platforms too, but after spending 2 weeks with this album, I really feel like I should encourage you to keep the indie DIY spirit alive and find a more direct way to support art you like. Perfect.